Alright guys, alright. We are here, back with Inside Star Citizen Watch Party. I haven't seen this. This is I've just literally woken up like 5-10 minutes ago. I have not been spoiled or anything like that. I have no idea what's coming. But as far as I know, it's Inside Star Citizen is like following up what's on 3.18. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, because I've been told by someone who works at CIG that there is more coming in 3.18 than we know. So I'm curious to see what my guy is telling me about that. But let's jump into it. Let's watch this and let's see what it's about. Oh, headphones.
It's a time of change here at Star Citizen. The Frankfurt office has moved into their new digs. The Winslow office prepares to migrate to Manchester starting next week. Our CitizenCon presentations are looming just 9 days away. And much of the focus of our development teams at present is in preparing for the upcoming Alpha 3.18. With persistent energy...
Let's just say at CIG, things are changing. And it's all for the better. Like these new offices that they're building are huge, because it's going to have basically a lot of people in the one office. It's going to allow them to be able to communicate and talk to each other in real time and face to face. It's going to be great for productivity as well.
Streaming that serves as the foundation not only of server meshing in Alpha 4.0, but everything else in the persistent universe as well. And since Alpha 3.18 is now scheduled to arrive in the first half of November, and ISC enters its regularly scheduled hiatus the next few weeks, we thought we'd take the opportunity.
So they keep saying this first week of November for 3.18. Look, I'm going to say that's optimistic. I would say you're most likely going to see it towards the end of December. I reckon it's going to be pushed back. They reckon they want to test persistent anti-streaming. If they do put it out in the first week of November, I think it's going to be buggy. But we'll see.
To try something new with our last episode of the quarter. A follow-up to each of the 3.18 related feature segments that we've done this quarter, looking at how they've continued to grow since we last showed them to you, answering your questions that you had after watching, and rolling them all into one big supersized report that we're calling the ISC follow-up. Because we're really, really good at naming things.
No, you're not. I mean, Jared. It goes 15 minutes, so this is actually quite interesting. This is going to be a decent sized report. Okay, just slight pause. I'm going to need caffeine. If it's 15 minutes, I need caffeine. Be right back. Alright. Caffeine. No wonder there was so many wars before like the 1980s or whatever it was. People were just sleep deprived and lacking caffeine. Nectar of the gods. Alright, let's jump into it.
Enjoy.
So since updating you on the rivers earlier this year, I've been focusing on the visual quality of the rivers themselves, so that when you explore them, they are looking better than ever.
Ooh.
I think the biggest visual change I've introduced to the rivers is the new cliff spawn points. Previously, where we had steep edges along the river, we just had the terrain texture that we get on steeper parts of the terrain. But I wanted to kind of increase the visual fidelity of this by spawning cliff meshes along the edge of it. So that's exactly what we've done. For the cliff mesh spawn points, we add a new spawn point at the height of where the terrain would have been if the river wasn't there, so that we can control where the top of the cliff is relative to the edge of the terrain near it. And that's these red spawn points you can see here. When I turn these back off, you can see we have cliff meshes that look as if they're the right height.
Oh, wow. That looks really good. I like that. I presume, obviously, there's going to be areas where it will slope down, but yeah, definitely cool.
Walk onto them from this terrain.
And going to be frustrating, because you're going to have to walk down the riverbed to find where the cliff face is low. But I like it. I like it a lot. What's he using? Is this Houdini or...
Right sure. Here, while still providing a nice kind of closed-in gorge for this river.
Look at that! Wow.
And actually, we were so happy with the results of adding additional spawn points around these gorgy areas that we decided to add more spawn points along the edge of normal rivers as well, so that we can get rocks right along the edge of the water to break up the silhouette between the terrain and the water. You can see those points here, and when I turn back on the scattering, you can see what that looks like. So as you can see, that really helps to break up the silhouette of the water, but also makes the whole area feel denser and more real. Another visual improvement I've worked on for the river is using more splines with the river modifiers. Instead of just a single central spline along the path of the river, we now have a spline for where each of the edges can be. And this gives us much finer control over how the terrain should dip down into the river, which is what actually matters rather than the depth at the middle for most cases. But it also means that we eliminate some of the effects we were getting at sharp bends. What we used to get at the sharp bend of a river was a pinching effect in the middle here, where the terrain would jump from referencing a point somewhere here on the spline to referencing a point somewhere here on the spline. So you can see that they're basically equidistant from a point over here, so we'd either be referencing the terrain from one or the other without ever kind of passing through this middle bit. Now that we have a spline for each edge, we can pick which edge is closer and then more closely reference that when picking the final height for that part of the terrain. And it just means that the edges of our rivers are much, much cleaner. We're getting much less in terms of artifacting that we were seeing before, and the overall result is just a lot better in my opinion.
That looks really, really good.
I'm really, really excited to see all of the new rivers come into 3.18 very, very soon. Put a lot of work into improving the visual quality of the rivers, as well as improving the tooling for our assets.
Well done. That looks insane. It really does. Like my guy said, yes, there is more coming in 3.18 than we knew, and I'm presuming this is some of the stuff that he was talking about. And I was told this months ago. I was in Discord telling Fez the same thing about 2 months ago.
To be able to place more and more interesting rivers. Our tech artists have been hard at work for the object presets for the rivers to make sure that we're getting really, really cool distributions of objects around them. And I just think what we're going to see in 3.18 is going to be a cut above what we've had so far, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks all.
That looks good, guys. Maybe the edge there needs a little work, but that looks phenomenal.
Since the last time we spoke about the PTV racetrack, it's...
Okay, don't hate me, but I'm not really interested in the racetrack. I don't know. Maybe this will change my mind. But I'm not really sitting there thinking, like, I'll probably go and I'll probably check it out and I'll probably have a few laps. But it's not something I'm generally sitting there, like, beating my you-know-what over, right? I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is.
It's been mostly just bug fixing. For the most part, it's been, like, the usual occasional collision issue we had to fix up. Also, there was, like, instances where RQA testers just took the card and went off the track and like drove into the elevators and got into other parts of the level. So I kind of had to go around and fence off all the areas where people could leave the track. Also, just in some cases, inside the track, there was little shortcuts that could be taken. So also these ones. Had to unfortunately block them off so nobody can gain an unfair advantage. One of the things we didn't discuss last time is where the buggies actually come from. So they're not something...
I like the fences. The fences look good. I'm still not that interested in racing. But I like the fences. I like that idea. And obviously making it so it's citizen-proof is what I'm going to start dubbing things now. Because us in Star Citizen, our spackers, we like to push the envelope. After all, we were the guys, not me specifically, but Star Citizen backers were the group of guys who decided that they might be able to use an asteroid and a SRV with a tractor beam to play soccer through the rings of Port Arthur. So, yeah, the autism is high, and that's why we love you guys.
The players bring themselves into the space. There's this little side section of the track where they spawn, and you take them and then just kind of bring them over to the
Still not that
starting
interested in
line.
racing, but like it.
And when they're destroyed, then they basically respawn in that section again.
Cool.
So there's always 8 buggies for the players. I can't wait to see what players will do with it once they get it in their hands.
You might live to regret that.
Since the last time we spoke, Kreia
I am interested in. I want to know what's happening with Kreia because it's actually a machinima.
has changed a lot in its environment. We've been sort of building up and sort of breathing new life into it, making it on par with some of our other locations in terms of branding and sort of how we want the player to move through the space.
Wow.
With this, CS1 and 2, Crime Stat 1 and 2 are no longer going to be things that get you shot or get you,
thank God.
You know, stop you from landing at a location.
Alright.
These fines will essentially just be like mini slaps on the wrists. Law enforcement will comment on them when they stop you and tell you to go pay your fines off, but they're not going to be as big of a meaning as they once was.
This is starting to get to the point where we're going to be removing the armistice zones from Staten. Where they're going to start opening it up so that you can actually go through and so that the AI and the players will actually be controlling and monitoring security. This is what this is sort of leading into.
Alongside this, we've also added other ways for the players to get rid of their sort of criminality. The fine kiosks that you can find all around now have a button that allows you to surrender to law enforcement. This gives you the 20% discount of your time served when you go into prison.
Right, like it.
And as always, this is going to go live and we're going to continue iterating on it, reading feedback and making improvements.
Cool. Like it.
So when the first video released and we was talking about Klesha, I was watching HC Vertigo, and he pretty much nailed the mission and who was given it. So I'm not going to spoil it. I don't want to let you know. But yeah, if you want to find out who it is, go check out HC Vertigo. Since the last time we talked about Klesha and the new updates to that, things are...
Big shout out to HC Vertigo, by the way. We don't always agree on shit, but I have a lot of time for the guy. He's actually definitely interesting. And it makes you wonder who he said it was now.
Going along nicely. We have AI walking about. They have loot on them. They're making the environment feel more alive. The black spot is in. The mission is working. In the mission, we've added routes coming out of the wall so that even though people might know how to beeline it out of there, now they have to figure out how to get to this place they've never been to before and break the route they're normally used to and then have to rejoin, which is the difficult part because we always make the rejoining bit harder and they can fall all the way down or, you know, whatever. So that's it for the updates to Klesha. Check it out when you get a chance.
How have the caves changed since we last spoke about them? Just some bug fixes and some polished work. So yeah, they're done.
So it's been a couple of weeks since the last time we talked about the Daymar crash.
That was really, really short. So they basically just done bug fixing and polish on sand caves. But they didn't show us anything. Makes you wonder why they didn't show us anything. I'm thinking maybe there's something they didn't want to surprise.
Site, and since then we've mostly been polishing and debugging. We had a go-no-go during which everything went smoothly.
Cool.
We actually noticed during playtests that the missions were too easy, so we just did some tweaking. We added some AI. On the level art side, they were working on some LODs, so how far the objects are going to display. We did a better navigation pass for AI and for the player.
Cool.
And I think we tweaked a little bit the cave, but there's just a crash chip in there, nothing else. We've also been working in integrating all the missions, so there's going to be 3 missions on the Daymar crash site. There's going to be a kill specific, a kill all, and a delivery missions where you need to go in and gather some loot crates and deliver them. We've also been working on changing up the AI that's there because currently it's the Ninetales and we wanted to add a little bit more diversity in there. So we're working on adding in the sand nomads, which are probably not going to be here for this release, but possibly the next one.
Oh, sand nomads, okay.
Since we last talked about the Siege of Horizon mission last week, we forgot to mention there's also some missions just coming to the islands that the Siege of Horizon takes place on. So these missions are going to take place on the islands when Siege isn't active.
Cool.
The missions we have you doing will take you from building to building, eliminating a number of enemies, or maybe taking out a high-value target. These missions are currently just like a prototype. They're very basic. They're just kind of exploring what direction we want to go at for these and other islands. So these will be another small addition when 3.18 goes live.
They've always said that they want to go through and they want to make it so that when these dynamic events aren't running, that you'll be able to go through and get missions in these locations. They've also said in the past that there should be no reason for you to willingly be forced to leave the planet and make money. You should be able to make money on the planets without needing a ship, because they want you to be able to buy a ship in-game and blah, 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 blah. So, like, eventually there's going to be a whole bunch of missions that will allow you to go through, make enough coin to maybe buy an Aurora or a Titan or something like that. And then, obviously, if you want to leave planet, obviously you can, but you can obviously just keep working on the islands or on the planet if you want. And this is going to be the same for Microtech, ArcCorp, Hurston, and Orison. Orison is obviously going to be the testing bed for this, where they're starting to put in, like, for example, Orison, there's going to be, like, maintenance missions where you need to go and fix, like, a thruster that's down on the floating platform, or, you know, there's, like, a gang that's taken over a building, like a hotel, and you need to go and clear it. Just general stuff like that. I would like to see more of these buildings have interiors than just ground floor, upper floor, and then, like, roof. Like, some of these buildings are, like, you know, 50 to 100 stories high, whatever they are. I would like to see them more eventually. Obviously, I know servers and tick rates and stuff like that can't do it now, but eventually you should be able to go in and sort of, like, you'll have, like 20 or 30 floors of, like, stuff happening, or, you know, maybe you go in and, like, the terrorists have taken over, like, level 8 of this building or something like that.
So there were some questions after we released our last ISC where we talked about hull scraping. And there are some things that I can clarify from our position. So
Cool.
What makes a Reclaimer more profitable or better in comparison to the Vulture? For T0 there is no real difference. So the only difference there is you have more space to store your scraped off hull material.
It's sort of like the Mole versus the Prospector. At the moment there is not a lot of difference except for how much you can carry and crew size. Which is why I tend to always suggest to people to, at the moment, just stick with the Prospector.
But the proper differences only come with Salvage T1. So once we talk about munching,
Yeah.
and actually like converting proper ship debris into smaller bits, the size of the Reclaimer is definitely an advantage here. Some comments were all asking about how can we use the Scraper Beam in an offensive manner. Technically you can, but you have to make sure that the target...
The best weapon in Star Citizen is the Prospector Miner. Not skin, check it out. Go up to an 890 jump and hit it with a mining laser and wait. Just wait like 20 to 30 seconds. Watch the fireworks.
Target ship has its shield deactivated. So as long as another ship is shielded, you will not be able to touch the hull because there's like this energy field that is protecting the hull.
Right.
So there were also some questions on the repair side, and sadly this repair iteration isn't the full fleshed out repair that you might need if your ship is fully destroyed. So if you lost a wing, the wing is lost. If you lost your engine, the engine is lost. So your magically repair gun that right now is taking the hull material to create new hull material, so this gun isn't able to 3D print you an engine, a fully functional engine with all its parts. So what it does is just cover-ups of like your hull.
So that makes sense, and that's pretty much what I expected it to be. It's not going to make you a new wing, but it will fix hull breaches in said wing. And I'm using the wing as an example here, right? So obviously, like the fuselage. If, for example, you have got holes in your fuselage from being shot at, you will be able to repair those hull breaches with this gun. And this is obviously going to come into important later when things like rooms is actually fully pressurization and atmospherics and stuff is put into ships. Eventually, no doubt, if you get shot at and you've got holes in your ship, you are going to start venting atmosphere. This gun will allow you to go and patch up those holes. Right? That's where this is going to come in important. So at the moment, it's very much a case of where it's cool at the moment to see. There's a lot more stuff coming down the line further that is going to be important, and that's what I've been told. Quite told.
So it increases your health of the ship again, but only to a degree where it is reasonable in comparison to what the hull actually stands for. So the material that you gather with the vehicle can be converted into the material that you use for your multi-tool to repair ships.
See, like there, he's fixing a hull breach.
There's one more thing. So we saw that you were already asking for what about players that are not interested in any combat scenario or in waiting others to shoot themselves to shreds and then picking up the debris pieces for profit from the hull scraping. Well, we have a solution for you. And well, the miners of you might already know it. So we will expand our harvestable system to also facilitate to spawn fresh derelicts. And what are fresh derelicts? Basically, they are just the husks of existing ships that have a probability to spawn in asteroid fields or basically around all the Lagrange points. And you will be able to find them using scanning and then approach them like you would do with a mineable and then scrape off their hull. And that is coming in Alpha 3.18.
Cool. Good.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that when you show a feature the very first week of the season, there's lots of room for additional improvements like we saw with River Tech. That QA can be just as squirrely as players when testing the arena racetrack. That Correa is looking pretty fresh with its Crusader makeover, and that changes to the law system will make Crime Stat 1 and 2 less troublesome to deal with in the future. In theory. And that while hull stripping won't be the offensive weapon some folks were theorizing, using the harvestable system to generate non-combat wrecks will be a welcome addition to the more peaceful-minded citizens out there. Now don't forget that CitizenCon is next Saturday, October 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UTC. It's shaping up to be a really informative quarter day, and not just visual updates that you've come to expect, but more design and gameplay presentations that'll lead the way in the Star Citizen's future. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you next week at CitizenCon.
I am looking forward to SitCon. I really, really am. Alright guys, I like this. I like the fact that it was 15 minutes. I like the fact that they've gone through and touched on several major areas. I would have liked to have seen more about the ships, like what's happening with the Banyu and stuff, but I presume we're seeing that at SitCon. So the Banyu, the Hull Sea, all this sort of stuff, I want to know what's happening with that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was a good episode. I actually quite enjoyed it. There's a lot of stuff here I'm like, oh yeah, this looks freaking amazing. So yeah, I actually really, really enjoyed it. Now obviously with SitCon, we will be streaming it live. I have already done the overlay, just to give you guys a little bit of look. Is going to be something like that. Fez has said he's going to try to be here, although he did also caveat with say about work, so we'll see. Hopefully he'll be here, and hopefully John, and who knows, we might even have someone else pop in. I'm not sure. But guys, obviously, if you do want to be in the Discord for SitCon, obviously links in the description below. Apart from that, guys, obviously this video has been helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We are branching out also. We're not doing just Star Citizen stuff anymore. We are also branching out. We're playing Osiris New Dawn, both the build and the experimental. And yes, there is a new experimental build coming out for that. So the playthrough will be going up as well as a full review. It's the first time I'm doing a review, and boy, it's a lot of work. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, apart from that, obviously with Star Citizen, we'll be covering as much as we can. And obviously we'll be definitely live streaming SitCon, just so we can obviously go through and get our reactions on things, because that's what we do. But guys, apart from that, have a great night, enjoy yourself, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what your thoughts in the comment section below about SitCon or anything you saw in this video. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night and enjoy.